All right, now we get to move on to lighting our fire pit. You have multiple different fuels that you can use, fuel choice. Depending on the evening that you're trying to have, the Cowboy fire pit is really great for entertaining guests. And so if you decide to use raw wood, you can start your fire and let it burn for a few hours to burn it down to your ambers in which you would want to cook over. In this particular instance, we're going to use a lump charcoal. You also have the option of using briquettes. I've used all three. Between briquettes and lump charcoal, you're going to get a similar results with cooking. It's more or less of a preference of your own. So today we're going to be using lump charcoal, and we're going to be using a lighter fluid to get our fire started. This is going to speed up the process as far as like our ambers being ready to cook. And so after we light our fire, you're looking at about maybe a 15 to 20 minute time period for the fuel to burn off and to develop the ambers they're going to want to cook over. All right, now we're just gonna get our bag to open up. We're probably gonna use most of this bag, and let's get started. Now that we're at this stage, you're really just going to want to fill your fire pot to where it's almost up to the brim. Make sure that your charcoal is evenly spread out. This is going to allow you to have a more even cooking surface. We're just going to add a little bit of fire starter to this. We're going to allow it to sit just for a few minutes before we light it. As far as like fuel to light your charcoal, yes, there's many different fuels you can use to light your charcoal. We're using a charcoal lighter. When you let it sit on your charcoal and you go to light it, it's not gonna go. Some people like to play with gasoline. Don't be one of those people. Normally what I look for before I light my charcoal is that you don't want it to appear wet anymore. So after you put the lighter fluid on there, kind of let it sit. Once it doesn't have a sheen to it, that's normally when I move in with the fire. Let that go. Now that our fire is ready, you can have a look and you can see that we have most of the charcoal has already been lit and it's white. You can see a little bit of ash on there. There's no open fire. And so what we're gonna do is that we're gonna place our steaks around the outside and we're gonna play a little bit of ring around the rosy as we cook them. One thing that we're gonna wanna avoid is any kind of flare-ups. We will be basting and there might be a little bit of this action, but look how easy it is to just take your steaks away from the heat if in fact you do have a flare-up. It does happen. Now that we started the process and can kind of gauge that we're not gonna have any kind of flare-ups, I would, for one, would like to get a little bit closer to the heat, and so I'm just gonna drop it down one more notch. So in this particular instance, as the heat passes up to the steak, it's going to be searing it, not only just making grill marks. And so once we flip, I'll be able to show you exactly what we're looking for on each side. Now, as you can see, now that the fat is starting to render and it's dripping on our coals, you're going to start to notice that you will have somewhat of a fire in there, but it's not going to be overwhelming. You don't want the fire to be above your grate. If you ever notice it comes above the grate, just simply move your steaks away from the heat. Allow your fire to burn down and then come right back to it. If you do encounter a flare up, we're just gonna kind of try and make an example as to what you would do if something like that were to happen. Essentially, what happens is that it's typically a grease fire is what is the culprit. And so all I'm gonna do is just add some of this fat and just add it to the outside of the fire, just kind of show you what a flare up could be. As you notice that the fire comes up and it's really starting to kiss your steak, you kind of want to avoid that. You can just kind of move it off to the side, and you can either go on either direction when this is happening. So don't be scared to play with fire. Oh my goodness, this is going to be so delicious. And that's how to build a fire to cook on the Pit Boss Cowboy fire pit.